Okay, so my understanding of 1 Timothy 2:11 through 15. This is a tough one, but I'm going to start out by reading the text. So it says, "Let a woman learn quietly with all submissiveness. I do not permit a woman to teach or to exercise authority over man. Rather, she is to remain quiet. For Adam was formed first, then Eve, and Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived and became a transgressor. Yet she will be saved through childbearing if they continue in faith and love and holiness with self-control." That's tough. Let's begin with verse 11. "So let a woman learn quietly with all submissiveness." I think that, first of all, just off of my inclination, is that this is also a command or a suggestion to not just women, but also all Christians. Because we're told in the Bible as Christians to live a quiet and humble life and not go out and brag and about all the things that we know and the secret knowledge. And like, this is something that is widespread. Like, learn quietly with all submissiveness to the scriptures, to your leaders, to God, to the word, to Jesus, with all submissiveness. Let a woman learn quietly, as well as men learn quietly. And I think to start out, I'd like to use this book. So it's Two Views on Women in Ministry with Linda L. Belleville, Craig L. Blomberg, Craig S. Keener, and Thomas R. Schreiner. And there are multiple points in this book that kind of start to explain. And to be honest with you, I kind of agree with both the egalitarian view and the complementarian view, just not necessarily fully one or the other. There are things that I agree with in both sides, and there are also things that I disagree with in both sides. If you were to label my view, I guess it would maybe be like a soft complementarian. I don't necessarily like that term soft, but that's what the culture kind of identifies that as, and so that's what I'll roll with. But it kind of speaks on the church that Timothy is in, which I believe is the church in Ephesus, and apparently the culture behind. So this is in this book. It's Linda Belleville. She talks about how the Ephesians, that not just the church, but the city of Ephesus, there was a cult to I think it's Artemis, and basically this was a woman, a goddess, and they worshipped her, and the women were supposedly the leaders in that cult. And so whenever Paul was writing this to Timothy, he was also addressing, like, hey, the women in this area, not because of, like, so basically not because of their role in the kingdom of God, not because of their lesserness in the kingdom of God, or in their favor to God, or in their roles in the church. There's nothing to do with lesser in that, but because of the already existing cultural issues where women were exercising authority over men all the time. My understanding, and honestly my best explanation for this, would be that Paul is addressing this group of people. And the next verse, verse 12, it says, "I do not permit a woman to teach or exercise authority over a man." So in the Keller reading, I think it was Keller, so it's Catherine Keller, she talks about how the grammar of this verse, in verse 12, "I do not permit a woman to teach or to exercise authority over a man. Rather, she is to remain quiet." The way that she explained it was that there is a grammar issue in that we have translated that into English, whereas the teach or administer authority over a man is kind of like saying, which because of other Greek texts that were often, this kind of conjunction was often used in the way that was like, the baby is sleeping nice and tidy, or nice and cozy, or like, I'm good and ready. It's like kind of like those kind of conjunctions where it's like, I'm not good and like ready. It's just like, I'm goodly ready, or the baby is sleeping nicely tidy. It's kind of like, do not exercise authoritative teaching over men, is how I would take this. Because I personally believe that women should be able to speak in a church. But it's where you get into the authoritative teaching is where I think that this verse is kind of addressing. Because Adam was formed first, men are naturally, like, this is from the complementarian side of things, where men are naturally inclined, gifted by God to lead. Not saying that women aren't allowed to lead, they're still leaders, just not the inclination that men were given, because Adam was created first. That's also where we get into the yet she will be saved through childbearing. This is such an interesting verse because it's like, oh, so me having kids is going to save me. No. What this is saying is that through childbearing, the motherly inclination that women are given, I'm going to repeat this over and over again. There's nothing to do with the lesser image of God. Like, women are not created in less image of God than men are. Equally, different characteristics of God are given to men and women, just in different ways. So that's where I agree with the complementarian view. So, I think that my understanding of this is that first, Paul is addressing the Ephesian people, the cult of the Ephesians, and how women are just, like, not women in general, but these women specifically are exercising authority over men because of what they're used to. Also, I do not permit a woman to teach authoritatively. This is where I get, a woman is allowed to teach, but not authoritatively. And so that line, I'm not really sure where that line is, where you start to begin to get into like I think where I would say is like commanding, like authoritative commands, teaching in a commanding way, rather than teaching the Bible, teaching the gospel, teaching Jesus, like, if that's the case, then, like, also where's the line of where someone becomes a man, over men? And that was different in those days too. In our culture today, a man would be somebody who is of the legal age of 18 and like out of the house and able to live on his own, whereas there in that time it was more of like when you turned 30, that was whenever you were like, this is where I receive my manhood. And so where's the line of when someone becomes a man? If that's the case, then a woman shouldn't be allowed to teach high schoolers that are seniors either, which I think is not true. And so my understanding of this, and obviously I'm open to my opinion being taught differently, but if I had to go through this, my conclusion of this entire verse, starting in verse 11, learn quietly with all submissiveness, addressing the women in that culture, in that time, in that area, that were exercising authority, which leads into the next verse. I do not permit a woman to teach or exercise authority, to authoritatively teach a man. And I think that Paul was just kind of like, hey, you guys are way too far this way. We need to pull back in. For Adam was formed first, then Eve, in verse 13. It is true, men are naturally inclined leaders a little more than women are. And that's just kind of how we were, like, and that's laid out all over the scriptures. That's not just in this text. And that's not something to be offended by. So that's where I'm kind of more complementarian. Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived and became transgressor. That is true. The woman was the one that was deceived first, but that is also not grounds to hold that against a woman. I think people take that a little too far in context. And then, yet she will be saved through childbearing. That also is affirming that, like, the natural inclination of a woman is more the nurturer, the life giver, the birther, like just kind of the motherly role in the congregation. yeah, and just like everyone else, be quiet and submissive and live a humble life in faith and love and holiness and self-control.